Okay, so welcome to this new course, Service-Oriented Computing. So today I will give you a brief introduction about the subject, and then we'll have some prerequisite concepts we'll cover today, like XML and XML related concepts in the today's lecture and the subsequent lectures, which are required or considered to be the prerequisite for this subject. So some of the things you already know, so I will try to explain what we'll cover in this subject. So subject name, as you know, it is service oriented computing, and I will try to describe what it is. So can anyone say what is service? In this subject name, we are writing it as a service oriented computing. So have you heard this term service or any idea about service? Okay, Janil is giving the answer that it is a specific task related solution. Okay, it performs some task, right? So service means uh, task or some function, basically, correct. You're right. Service is nothing but some task or function which is performed by the software. Do you know any related term with the service? Okay, right. Nowadays, microservices. So now this is the enhancement to the services. So first, it is a evolution of the services. So basically, it is called web service rather than call it as a simple service. Normally, we call it as a web services. So the general term is web services, and then it has been evolved and new architecture has come up, which is nowadays called microservices. Fine. So you know something about the latest happening in our computer world. Okay, fine. Good to know that you know the latest things. Right. So usually we call it as a web services. Any other related term? Server or okay. Uh, all of you know API. What is it? API stands for Application Programming Interface. Okay, so API stands for Application Programming Interface. So what is the use of API? Okay, it provides abstraction. Okay, and it's a bridge between front end and back end, right? Anything else? All of you know API. We already created API in previous semester. In Node.js, we have created API and which was consumed in the front end in Angular. Okay, interact user with the service. So basically, when this front end wants some data, it will ask the data from the web services. Okay. Yeah, correctly said. It provides services to front end. So normally, services are providing the data to the front end. Okay, and correct. It is also correct that it defines. It has predefined tasks to perform. Right. So when we say API, though API is a very general term, it is not necessarily used for these web services. Nowadays, it is widely used for referring to the web services, but there is also another meaning of API. API is a very general term. API means application programming interface, and uh, the general meaning of the API is nothing but it's a collection of functions. So basically, it's a library of function. Okay, so the general meaning of the API is a library of functions or set of functions. Okay, for example, operating system API. Have you heard this term? OS API. What does it mean? OS API means, or can you give example of operating system API? Sys32 write system call. Correct. Basically, another name in operating system, we call it as a system call, or sometimes also called as the system functions. Right. So in Unix and Linux world, we call it as a system calls, and in Windows, people call it as an API. So it's a very broad term, and normally it is referred to the set of functions. Basically, a library of functions are called API. That means suppose I want to write a C program, and within through the C program I want to create a file. So see that C program cannot create the file. Who can create the file? Right. It is the operating system. So basically a kernel can only create the file. And that's why the kernel will provide the API or system calls or system functions, which can be accessed by the programs. Okay, programs can call it. So basically the program will request that to the operating system, say please create a file for me or write the data into this file. But again, it will depend upon the situation, whether the user has the right to create a file or there is a sufficient space, or uh, there are any other roles only some user can create or some user can write the data. So depending upon that, that request might be satisfied or not. So that's why this API is a very broad term. Even suppose you are writing a program and you are developing library. Suppose you are developing a game, and for game you need to create or display character on the screen. So what you do, you create a library of functions through which you provide the parameter, and a character will be drawn on the screen, right? So for that you create a multiple API for drawing different shapes or different characters on the screen, and different functions for manipulating that character or moving that object on the screen. So that's why you create a set of API. Basically, there also you create a set of library functions. So in general, I think now you know the meaning of API. So it is not restricted to the web services, but it's a very broad term, and you can use it. But nowadays it is widely used for web services, and sometime to clarify it, we also call it as a web API. Okay, we call it as a web API, or we also call it as a web service. Basically, it's a way of developing softwares. Okay, so it is called service oriented architecture. You already know how to develop web application. You already know MVC pattern. Okay, through MVC pattern you can develop the web application. So what happens on the server side, all the code is running and it might follow the MVC pattern, and it is sending the data to the browser. So all the processing will be done on the server side. Even sending the HTML is also, even designing the GUI is also done on the server side. So that is one approach of developing web application. Another approach of developing web application, or rather architecture, is service oriented architecture, in which what happens, you divide your logic into number of services. You divide your business logic into different set of services, and you develop the front end. So now you are the code is divided into two parts. One is the front end logic and the business logic. So the business logic is written in using the services, and the front end logic, the role of the front end logic is to simply manipulate the GUI, okay, user interface. So it will simply manipulate the user interface, but to get the data, it is dependent on the web services, and the web services will produce the data. It will get the data from the database, and it will send the data to the front end. So this is called basically a rough idea of service-oriented architecture, but more detail will be covered by APV sir. Uh, right now, I will not go into the more detail. Okay. So now can anyone say what is the benefit of developing a software in this manner? What are the benefits of developing software using this approach? Okay, good. We have distributed among teams, so multiple team can work on different services. Modularity, fine, because every services can be thought of as a module, and this module can be distributed to a different people in a project development team. Okay, no dependency. So technically, what can we refer to when we do not have any dependency among the module? There are two technical terms for referring to that dependencies among modules. Right. It is coupling and cohesion or loosely coupled. So we always need to go for the loosely coupled design. So coupling should be as much less as possible, and cohesion should be high. So within the module, the dependence should be very high, and between the module, the dependency should be less. So that is the design principles. Okay. So there are many design principles for software development, and there are many design patterns that we should follow to have a good software, and which is maintainable, which is having scalable, all the flexibility, all the benefits of will get if you follow those principles and design patterns. Okay, fine. And okay, fine. So we are having a few more benefits like easy to understand, right? Because now they are independent and small, then we can easily understand it. It is scalable, right? So if we are if you are porting it to the cloud and they are running on the different server, so scalability will increase. uh, Okay. Uh, all of you know monolithic architecture. Then it will become more clear. Monolithic architecture. Okay. All of you have any idea about Linux kernel or Linux operating system? Which architecture it follows? Okay. Preet is saying it is monolithic. Then you should also know what is monolithic. What do you mean by monolithic? Why is it called? Why it is called monolithic? So see that there are many examples in front of us. We are also using it, but now we are going into the more detail, right? People are saying Linux is monolithic, right? But why? What do you mean by monolithic? Why we say it as a monolithic architecture? Okay, everything is at one place. Slightly more detail is required to understand monolithic. Services are separate. Mm, no. Okay, so suppose I need to install a software. How many executable files are required to install a software? Right, only one. And to run it, how many files are required? multiple. Suppose I am installing editor. So to run an editor, do I need to run multiple files? No, only one file is required. But when we are installing, it may be installing multiple file. So some of the files are data files. Okay, some of the files are data files. But see that that application is only one. Application is only one. So basically, it's an executable file. So there is only single executable file. Okay. So when we write a program, we develop a program, and final outcome is only a single executable file. It is called monolithic. Are you getting? What do you mean by monolithic? When you're developing, you are developing as a separate module, multiple module, but at the end, you are integrating all the module as a single source file, and then finally there is only single executable file. It is called monolithic. That means Unix or Linux kernel is only single executable file. Clear, everybody? Okay, so I have given example of editor. So if I want to run an editor, I need not run the multiple executable file. Only single files is suffice to run the editor file. Okay, so this is what we mean by monolithic. That means suppose I want to change the Linux kernel. Should I require recompilation? Do I require recompilation of the source code? If I want to change, I want to make change into the Linux kernel. Yes, because it's a, if you know that most of the kernel is written in C language, more than 90% of the code is written in C language. So if I need to change a kernel, if I want to make changes into the operating system itself, I want to add some functionality. I need to make change, and then I need to recompile the entire source code. Okay. And then finally it will produce the executable file. That executable file is nothing but the kernel. So it is called monolithic architecture. Okay. So fine. So now you know the monolithic. So what we are discussing about the scalability. So when you are developing a software as a monolithic now, so far what you already developed is in terms of monolithic. Most of the program you have developed using monolithic. Suppose you are developing web application using Servlet, JSP, or Python, PHP. See that all the programs will be part of a single executable on the server side, or jar file or war file. Okay, and there if you want to make change, you need to, it will affect the other component also. But when we are developing using web services, you can develop the services separately, and the scalability increases. Now we do not have higher load on a single machine, because now your application is not larger. It is divided into multiple subcomponent, and those components can run on different machines as well. So that's how you get the scalability. So fine. So it is you know these benefits, but you also should know why is it so. Because okay, someone said that scalability is high, but how is it possible? How does it become scalable? Again, there are many advantages already mentioned by some of the students, like it is easily testable. Keval is saying it is easily testable because of different modules. We can have dependency injection. Okay, fine. So that's how we get the benefit of the service-oriented architecture, and there are many more. Uh, okay, few more advantages is like okay, can I use Java as the front end, which can invoke the which can consume the API from the backend? In AT subject, we already developed API, and API was written in Node.js, and we discussed only the CRUD operations, which were consumed by the front end Angular. So is it possible that I can write down the front end in Java, which can consume the same API written in Node.js? What do you think? Okay. Abhi is saying yes. Okay. Preet is saying should be. Why it should be? Okay, good that you are thinking in that direction. Okay, the other people also try to give the answer. We are not restricted to only few students because all of you are very much intelligent. So you also should try to give the answer if you are confident enough. Okay, the answer is yes. And Abhi, can you give the answer? Why is it possible? Not only Java, it is not necessary that the front end is Java, but it can be anything. Even the program written in other languages can also consume the API. But what is the requirement so that it is possible? The answer I already given. Now you need to think about how it becomes possible that we can have a front end or any front end code written in any language which can consume or which can invoke the APIs. Okay, Sahil is saying XML. So you are in the right direction. You are going in the right direction. So XML, JSON. Okay, so these are the different way of representing data. Okay, so fine. So you are thinking and you are in the right direction, and we are going towards the correct path. We are following the correct path. So basically, this XML and JSON, and there are many other standards for representing data. So representing data, storing the data, transferring the data from any application to any application, from one application to any other application. So this is how we can have a front end written in any language can invoke the API. In addition to that, one more thing is required. If you think little bit, you will get the answer. In addition to XML and JSON, what is required so that the communication is possible? You already found out the answer yourself. So see that I am not giving the answer, but you are the giving the answer. That means you are thinking, you have the knowledge, right? You know the answer. But now, if I will just give you the hint, and I am through some brainstorming, you will give the answer. So I don't want to give the answer directly. Okay, middleware that can communicate with both. So in the previous example, do we require some middleware? So now there are two parts, front end and back end. Remember. So in the current scenario, there is a front end. So Angular is nothing but it's a JavaScript code ultimately. We write it in TypeScript, but ultimately converted to the JavaScript code. So the JavaScript code is running in the browser, which is making a request to the backend for the data. And how do they communicate? So can you say how this front end will communicate with the backend? Which is the mechanism for communication? Partially right, JSON, but it is not the exact mechanism. Okay, I will further give you more hint. How do we communicate with each other right now? Or correct answer is language, through the English language. Right now we are communicating through the English language. Okay. So front end and back end, how do they communicate with each other? Is it through JSON or XML? Which language they talk? So right now we are talking English language. Which language they can speak, they can understand? No, they cannot, because see that machine language is different. So suppose my machine is a Intel processor and the server machine is some ARM processor or some other architecture. So they have different language. Machine language is different. Okay, the JavaScript code is running. It is run by the browser. Okay, browser is an application. Which language it can understand? Browser. It is for display purpose, but it is not communicating. It is only for display purpose. Right, now the answer is coming. Finally, it is HTTP. Okay, so HTTP is the language through which the application can communicate with the browser. So here server application. So server and browser both are communicating through the HTTP protocol. Okay, so the language of communication is HTTP. So remember that the language should be common, otherwise communication is not possible. Suppose I speak in Japanese language, you will not understand. Or if I start speaking some another language, say Chinese language, you will not understand. Or vice versa, right? So the communication is possible if and only if both the application can talk the same language. Or otherwise we require an interpreter. Okay, some intermediary person is required who can translate the languages. Otherwise the communication is not possible. So here also the communication is possible only if both of them are communicating HTTP, and that's why any front end can be written in any language as far as it can talk HTTP. It can understand, it can communicate through the HTTP protocol. And nowadays this has been made simple because most of the languages support the HTTP library through which you can issue the HTTP request, you can get the data. So the first thing is clear. The communication is possible through the HTTP protocol. Is it clear? And that's why we get the interoperability. The server can be anything, client can be anything, written in any language, any platform, any operating system, any tool, any framework, but still communication is possible. Why? Because all of them can speak HTTP. And that's why you get the interoperability. If I visit some any other country, as far as I know English language and the people of that country understand the English language, communication is possible, right? But if that country's people do not know the English language and I do not know their language, the communication is not possible. So that's why in computer world also this interoperability is achieved because all of them can communicate via the HTTP or HTTPS, which is a secure protocol over the HTTP. And it's not necessary that HTTP is only used, but sometimes other protocols are also used like TCP, UDP, MSMQ, and some specialized protocols are also used for these special cases. Okay, fine. So, and now once we are communicating, and then if you want to transfer the data, we use the JSON, XML, or any other standardized data format. Okay, fine. So, we'll have more discussion about this service oriented architecture the design, how does it work, how to implement it. We'll learn the languages also. So this will develop on the .NET platform. Everything we'll learn, but we'll begin with some prerequisite and then we'll go into the more depth because these are the some prerequisite for data. So you already know the JSON part. So today we'll cover the XML part because now the front end and back end part both are communicating via HTTP protocol and they are transferring the data, and data is either in JSON format or XML format. And there are some other way of communication also where this XML is widely used. So before JSON, XML was widely used, and there are so many standardized protocol related with the XML, and they are also heavily used by many of the technologies. There are many applications, so this is required to know this XML in detail. Okay, so let me begin with the slide. We'll cover the XML and relevant technologies which are used by the web services, and there are many other standards which uses them. Okay, so basic you already know, but we'll go into the more details. So XML, DTD, XSD, XPath. So there are so many XML related technologies. So we'll learn them which are required for this subject as well as some related concept or implementation requires the use of this XML. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, is my slide visible? Okay, thank you. So we'll have a brief introduction. We'll have brief and quick introduction about the XML. So before we understand XML, we should know what is markup language. So markup language is nothing but it defines the markup. What are the different set of keywords or markup used in the language? What are the required thing of this language and how it differs from the normal text in our document? And what are the meaning of those markup? So you already know HTML. Okay, HTML tag are those are nothing but HTML is an markup language. So HTML is a markup language, XML is a markup language. All these are examples of markup languages. Then we have SGML. So this was the earlier standard before the HTTP or XML. So it was SGML is a standard called standard generalized markup language, and it was used to describe the structure and content of the text document. And it also provided the way of providing the data in a device independent or system independent manner. That means same document can be shared across different operating systems or different languages, and still they are able to understand the document or the data available in the document. And in this HTML standard, the tags are not predefined. In HTML, you know, all the tags are predefined. Paragraph, divs, images, tables, all these tags are predefined. But in HTML, tags are not predefined. But there is a standard called DTD through which you can validate the structure of the document. So this standard was large, it was complex, it was powerful as well. And earlier people were using heavily in the industry or commercial for many years. Markup language. So see that HTML is nothing but it's a small application of HTML which is used on web. and it has corresponding DTD and set of processing convention. We'll talk more about DTD later on. So, so in SGML you can have there is no predefined tag, but here in HTML we have the predefined set of tags. So we cannot add tag, we cannot remove the tag. There are some standard predefined tags which are defined and which can be uh, rendered by the browser or any application which is used to render the HTML data. Now XML, it is an extensible markup language. So see the word extensible. So it is extending what is available. The use of the XML is to store and transport the data. So we use JSON to store the data. Similarly, XML file can be used to store the data as well as to transport the data. It is both human and machine readable. Fine, because they are human related words are there. The tag names are such that which are easily understood by the humans as well as machine can understand also. Machine means application. It is also a markup language. It was designed to be self-descriptive and it was standardized by W3C. So it is recommended by World Wide Web Consortium. So basically W3 is a standard for standardizing the technologies over the web, right? So basically it's a simplified version of SGML. So again, see that HTML and XML are both subset of the SGML, and it keeps the many of the useful features of the SGML. And XML is more flexible and adaptable than the HTML. Okay, so let's directly jump over to the example. You already seen many XML files. Many of the configuration files are written using the XML format. So you already know the structure of the XML file. This is a very simple example of XML file. It begins with the XML prologue, wherein you can see that we define the version number of the XML. The first line contains the XML keyword, the version number, the data, in which format the data is available or which character set it uses. It is UTF-8. Now, basically it stores the data about some note. A note is written, or rather, a note is written from the author. It is to some person with the heading or title and some body, okay, some content. So this is a simple note. So basically some data is stored in the XML file using this format. So you can see that there are tags are used, note, to, from, heading, body. These are user defined tags. In HTML, everything is predefined. Exactly opposite to the HTML, it is XML. Everything is user defined. Okay, so here the author will define which set of tags are to be used and how these tags are to be written. And you know the format, starting tag, closing tag, okay? And in between there is a data. So it is similar to HTML, but here the difference is it is user defined. Any doubt in this example? Any questions related to this slide? Okay. And now an application can read this XML file and it can display it. Okay. Or so this is how it will UI looks like. So the data is in the XML file. Normally the file extension is .xml. And then this data is rendered by some application, maybe browser. So browser may be rendering the data in HTML and using some HTML properties. So see the difference between this. The XML is used to store the data, and an application like browser might be displaying the data in some particular way. Okay. The font size is different. Okay. The font type may be different. Background color, foreground color. Okay. Everything, the styling basically, the styling is different. And the same data can be displayed in a different manner. Suppose we change the background color, it will be, the UI will change. The data should not change, only the UI will change. So basically in MVC pattern, we are trying to say that separate the view from the model. So here you can say this is the model and this is the view. Okay, so we are separating out these two parts. So if you are changing the model, view will change, but without changing the model, view can also change. Now this is much more detailed example of XML file. Just go through it. It provides some restaurant menu. So you can see that breakfast menu. There are multiple foods available, their name, price, description, okay, and some calories for that food. So this is one more example of XML file. You can go through it. This is a very simple example, but more detailed than the previous one. So here you can see that a breakfast menu can contain multiple foods. So right now only two foods are specified in this XML file, but you can keep more than that also. But every food will have a name, unique name, price, description, and the calories. So again, you can see that it is a user-defined file. User will define how many foods are there in the restaurant, what are their names, prices, description. So everything is user-defined. So here user-defined tags are there. The data may vary. Okay, the data can be changed. Suppose price gets changed, you need to modify the XML file. So usually the program will read the XML file, it will modify the data and save the data back to the file. So think of it as a like a database, okay? But here data is in form of XML file. So now the difference between XML and HTML. So here focus is on the data, okay, storing the data. While for HTML, the focus is on how to display the data, okay? Their objectives are different. Similarly, in XML, tags are not predefined, while in HTML, all the tags are predefined. And remember, XML is not a replacement for HTML and vice versa. The objectives of HTML and XML are different. Okay, though it looks similar, but the objectives are different, and these are the differences. So this is the same example. In HTML, we have predefined tag, and in XML, we can define our own tags. Okay, depending upon the type of data, you define the tags. So here, suppose I want to store the data of restaurant, I am creating an XML file with the tags say breakfast menu. Within that, different foods. Every food have a name, price, description, and calories. And this can be changed also. It will depend upon the user. Depending upon the user, will decide the structure of the XML file. Now, as the XML has the name extensible, that means it is extensible. So I can later on I can modify the XML file. I call that new note file in which I am adding the date and time. Okay. So here you can see that I have modified the original XML file, and here date and time or date and hour are added. Okay, new tags are added into the existing file. So now the new application. So there are two files: the older file, and the newer XML file. Uh, do we require to change the application if we change the XML file? Here we have changed the XML file. Do we need to change the application? Will it affect the front end? Because now the data has been modified. Previously it was using node.xml. Now it is using new XML file. Right. Your answer is right. If you don't modify the application, it will display the old data. But if you want to display the new data like date and time, then we need to modify the application. Okay. So there may be two versions of the application. Okay. The older application will not be affected because the new data is not. It is adding something new features or new properties. New features are being added to the XML file, which will not be read by the new file. Okay, it will basically ignore those data. But if you want to have the second version, which is the newer version, can also display the date and time along with the some other information of the note. Okay, so this is how it will work. You can have the two versions, or the new version can also display the newer features, but it will not affect the older application if you are not removing the important. Otherwise, which information are not available, which will be simply ignored by the new application. And here is the output for the older version and the newer version. So now in the newer version, we have the date and time added in the data. Okay. So the advantage of XML, it simplifies the data sharing, transportation, even the platform changes. Platform changes means the same file can be available on Windows, Linux, any other operating system, Mac, Solaris. It will not affect. Okay. The application can easily understand the data irrespective of the platform on which the data is lying. So basically XML will separate the data from the presentation. Remember that the objective of the XML is to store the data, and it is the front end will display the data according to the user need. Okay. And normally XML is a complement to HTML. It is not the replacement to the HTML. So some of the benefits of XML are the data of XML can be written in plain text. So normal editor, any simple editor can be used to write the data, update the data, modify the data, and it can be easily human readable. We can easily identify it. Even we can provide it is style free. That means the presentation is not part of the XML, but there are some standards like XSL. Using that, you can also provide the styling to the data, existing XML data. So they both are separate. Okay, the data and stylings both are separate, and we also get the reusability. Okay, the same data or same structure can be reusable across multiple applications. You can modularize the data, and also you can use it in some another file. For example, multiple XML file can be used, and some of the data can be reused in another XML files. There are linkability. So there are some XML related technologies like Xlink and Xpointer to point to the different XML file. They can be easily processed, and they are vendor neutral standard. That means one application can use the XML data of other application. Normally what happens, suppose one application can read the XML file. Same XML file, suppose one application can read the say Excel file or spreadsheet data. If the data is available in the spreadsheet, then only few application can access it, who can understand the spreadsheet data. But if the data was present in the XML, many of the application can easily read the data, modify the data. And nowadays, most of the languages has the library for manipulating the XML data. So you need not write the code for that. You can easily use the library functions to read the XML file, add, edit, update. All the CRUD operations can easily perform by the library functions of the respective languages. And the XML data is stored in a hierarchical fashion, which are faster to access and easier to rearrange. We'll see that. So this is the XML tree structure. Okay, before that, we'll look at the example. This is one more example of XML file. The first line is called processing instruction or XML prologue, which tells that this is an XML file, the version number of XML, the data encoding UTF-8. This is an example of library bookstore. There are multiple books inside the bookstore. Every book has the category and title, author, the year, publish year, and the price of the book. Okay. So you will see that we have tags as well as attributes. So in HTML, some of the tag can also have attributes. Similarly, in XML, a tag can also have an attribute. So here you can see that category is an attribute. So this is an example. Now every XML file will have a one root element. You cannot have more than one root element. And tag can also have sub tag or nested tag as well as attributes. So book has an attribute category. Okay, book has an attribute category. Similarly, title of the book has the attribute language, in which language the book is available or book is written. I hope that this example is clear. Bookstore example. The first statement, then root element, then attributes, tags, and you can see that internally XML can be represented in the tree form. So this is the tree structure of the same XML file. Bookstore is the root of the tree. Then there are elements book. Book has the attribute category. Then book have sub element or nested elements, title, author, year, and price. And every title will have the text data. So this is similar to the DOM structure we you already know, right? So this is also called as the XML DOM. So internally it is a tree structure. The XML data can be represented using the tree structure or sometimes called as the XML DOM. And there are the relationship between the node, parent, child, sibling, and so forth. Now the important part of the XML, here you have the some of the rules of the XML, syntax rules. The XML file must follow these rules so that it is valid or well form. Okay, otherwise it is not the well form. It is not correct XML file. Okay, so technically it is called well form XML file. So every XML file must have a root element. You cannot have more than one root element. So this is an example. Second rule is an XML file can have an optional prologue. Okay, where you define the version number and encoding of the text. Every starting tag must have a closing tag. Okay, so if we miss the closing tag, then it is not a correct XML file. So these are the syntax rules of the XML file. So these are some basic syntax rules for the correct or well-formed XML file. XML tags are case sensitive. So here is an example. It must the opening and closing tags must match. Okay, along with the case. The nesting should be proper. That means suppose italic tag is nested under B, then it should be nested properly. Otherwise, XML application will deny accepting the XML file. Okay, due to it is not following the syntax rules. So nesting should be proper. Then attribute value must be quoted. Okay, so suppose an attribute date without quote, it will not work for the XML. But this is true about HTML. In HTML, the attributes may be quoted or not quoted, it will work. But in XML, it will not work. It is not the correct XML file as per the syntax rules. Or another words to tell that it is not well formed. Suppose you want to use the less than character or less than symbol in your text, then you can use the entities. So these entities are also available in the HTML. You can use ampersand, LT, semicolon. So that is used to display the less than symbol. Okay, so here is a list of the symbols, entity references, less than, greater than, ampersand, the apostrophe, and quotation mark. So usually, if you want to display those data or if you want to keep it as part of your data, then use the entity references. Comments are similar to HTML. In HTML, white spaces are reduced to a single space, but in XML, white spaces are preserved. Okay, so multiple white spaces would be preserved as part of the data because it is data. In HTML, if you have multiple white spaces, it will be reduced to a single white space. Internally, the new line is represented as a line feed character, but different application use the different combination of character for the new line. So when we press an enter key from the keyboard, uh, XML file will store it as a line feed character. So HTML will have element. Similarly, XML can have element. The only difference is here the tags names are user defined. So opening tag and closing tag and the data in between. In between, we can have the text. We can have other elements, or the element can itself contain some attributes. So this is an example of a bookstore. Once again, I am specifying this data. We know that an element can also have empty elements. So there are two ways of representing the empty elements like this. Nothing in between, no data, only opening and closing tags. Some of the naming rules for the tag names or element names are they are case sensitive, they must begin with a letter or underscore character, and they cannot use the XML as the it is a reserved word. Okay, and afterwards it can contain letters, digits, hyphens, underscores, and periods. So this is the naming rules for element names in an XML file. And the attribute values must be quoted, either use double quote or single quote. This is an example where a gender is used as an attribute. In the second example, gender is used as a element, so sub element. Okay, so person can have the gender as either attribute or as a element. So person tag has contains element gender or attribute. So there are two ways: either you represent it as a attribute or as a sub element or nested element. Similarly, see that here date is a attribute. First example. Second example, it is an element. In the third example, date is also further divided into day, month, and year. So what kind of granularity is required? Accordingly, you can define your XML structure. So there are three examples. In one, we have the date as an attribute. In the second, as an element. In the third, date is an element having sub element day, month, and year. Okay. Okay, fine. I think we are just at the end of the slide. We'll stop at this point, and few slides remaining topic will cover in the next lecture. And the next lecture also we will cover the few more XML related technologies. And I will upload this slide to the Google Classroom. Those who have not joined the Google Classroom, please join it. Uh, okay, let me give you the code for that. Wait a minute. Please join the Google Classroom of this subject SOC. Okay, fine. We'll meet in the next lecture.